ways. Either it's going to be mentally where I map it up in my head, and if I have any questions on something, I'll go back to the text, I'll look at that, and I'll go, what does what I'm describing occur in the text? As in, like, am I having the outcome or the actions that are described in the play in the text occurring when I do this thing? If I want further clarification on that, then I'll usually start practicing it just like in a shadow box like style. You know, so you're sort of around the house trying not to take out your lights or your ceiling. If I need further, if I need something a little further, put a little more work into it, what I usually do is I have a bike rack at home, and what I will do is I will put one of my swords in the bike rack, and I will put it in a position that I would assume my opponent would be in if I was trying that technique, and I will try to kill the bike rack for about 5 minutes. It's usually pretty hilarious. And failing that, if I need further clarification, I need to apply a little more force to it, I will set up a Pell. I've got a Pell at home with a tire on it, and I will beat the crap out of that tire. And hopefully it doesn't beat the crap out of me, because that has happened a couple times. Just because it's an inanimate object doesn't mean it can't hurt you. All right. But for what I want to do today, just to get some practice in, is because it takes about 10 to 20,000 repetitions of a movement to burn in new neural pathways and get it what I would call mastered. So I want to help you get a head start on that. So we're going to walk through a number of different cuts and other maneuvers, and we're just going to do it multiple times over and over again for, I'd say, about 10 minutes. Let's give that a go.
I want to get the basics.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
So we're just going to do, okay, so we're going to start overhell from the right. So new class for you. We'll work on mechanics later. Okay, so we're doing an overhead blow. Start targeting your opponent's upper left quadrant and slicing through to the lower right quadrant. So we're going to start. We can do it with the step if you want, or you can just do it. You can do it pivoting on the back foot. So we'll do it kind of like Messer footwork. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other practice. Yeah. If you're not casting that point, think about casting that point out there like you're on a river. You're casting a fishing line. You want that point to go first, because that's what's going to threaten your opponent. So I'm kind of stopping where my blade, if I was fighting Suzette and I was striking her, you just have to be right in front of me. I'm kind of stopping where my blade would be exiting her jaw. A little morbid, but this is a martial art after all. Okay, so that's quite a few. Let's try from the left now. So your dominant hand, so if you're righty, I'm assuming everybody here is a righty, lefty's fine. But your dominant hand, whatever that is going to be on top, and your other hand is going to be on the bottom. Since I'm righty, my right hand's on top, my weaker hand's on the bottom. Remember, the same thing. This one's going to be a little different. A lot of the action that starts the movement is going to come from your left hand, or at least it is for me. And I'm just letting the sword pull me along. Keep in mind also, a lot of the texts also advise not starting the fight with a blow from your weak side, because it puts you at a disadvantage. Like in this case, if I attack Koistya from the left and he beats my sword, watch what happens to my arms. They crossed over. If he stays bound on me, go ahead and give me a nice vicious beat and bind, okay? Yeah, if he stays bound on me, my arms are crossed. I can't go any further here, and it's really hard for me to apply pressure to do that. If he does it on the other side, I can resist that. I can apply structure and resist. I can apply structure and muscular strength to that and resist him. And it's easier for me to move and act against him at that point. So don't start from your weak side for your Vorschlag. So that's your first opening exchange on it. And about. All right, then we'll do it for the left. All right, let's do overhead. Speaking of overheads, I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay.
Which ties into Don't Be Weak and Krieg.
What's that?
So it looks new.
Yeah, it won't be in a second. All right, so cutting from up, so Montag from high. So you can do this with a step forward. We're actually going to be playing with this blow later today, if we get the time, I think we can get to it. This is also what you would refer to as a Scheitelhau, or a scalp stroke. So we're targeting the top of the head. You can also use it to target at a diagonal as well. So for instance, if I wanted to attack Suzette from here, I could still do the same cut I did with a bob tog from the shoulder. I still get the same action, or I could cut straight down. You can also switch your feet and cut from the left this way. Oh, all right. I'm gonna take a break, shake it out, loosen up. Okay. So that will do that. All right. So we don't use these often, but they do occur, and it just stands to practice these. So the next cut we're going to be doing is called a Mittelhau. So that is a middle stroke. It is a horizontal cut that you can either use to target the body or the head. Typically, if we're doing it to the body, we're going to be doing it when our opponent's defense is out of the picture. So for example, if Constantine and I were fighting, we got into a bind, and our hands ended up going high, that would be a good place for me to use a Mittelhau to the body, because his hands and his weapon are not as much of a threat, and I've been able to realize before he did that his lower quadrants are open. So normally though, when you're going to throw a Mittelhau, it's going to be at the side, it's going to be at the head. And you can either use this as a cut into the head or as an entry. So for example, if he throws a cut at me, I can use this to displace his blade and line up a thrust for my follow-up action. This is a lot like a Zwerchau in a lot of ways. We just have the sword. Our thumb is just on the other side of the sword. The downside to this is if you lead with it, you're leading with your arms to begin, so you actually have a potential vulnerability there. So if you're going to throw it, you need to throw it when they're already committed somewhere else, or throw it out of measure. So for instance, if I was going to throw it, I would throw it from back here, or I'd throw it when he was committed somewhere else. So something like that.
It's not grip?
No, it's just a standard grip. I'm just cutting off the shoulder in standard grip, and I'm cutting it in a horizontal fashion to his head. Okay, so let's practice that one from the right. We're just gonna go here. Like I said, throw this from out of measure, or if their blade is otherwise committed. If you want to, you can add a step in.
May I make a note on the mechanic?
Please do.
Please observe that, like we always say, to not baseball it. This one, a little bit baseball it, but look, he's still being conservative. There's no heroic big elbow. It is as conservative as a Mittelhau can be. So yeah, it is a little bit baseball, but it's still pretty tight.
I'm still moving around the center of rotation on the sword. I'm just casting my hands out and moving and striking horizontally instead of at an angle. All right, let's do a few more of those. Same thing again. Throw the sword, follow in its wake. All right. Let's try from the other side.
Especially with the core.
Good handle on that. Oh, fun fact, you can also use this Zwerchau with this as a good follow-up. So for example, if I throw this at Question and he gives me a really big parry, I can turn the follow-up into a Zwerchau pretty easily. So this has got a lot of good tactical application to it. All right, so that covers kind of our upper attacks. So we got over attacks, middle attacks, now for the under attacks. All right, just keep this one simple. We're going to lay our blade down into Nebenhut, so near guard. You've got it laid. Basically, the blade is kind of in the same plane as your body, as your legs are. And we're going to be cutting, it's the opposite of the Oberhau. We're going to be cutting from the lower quadrant to the upper quadrant on the opposite side. Because if I was going to attack Suzette here, I'd be either aiming for her midsection or her hip and trying to exit the shoulder, or if I was targeting a specific part of the body, maybe I'd be targeting the lower jaw and exiting the top of the skull or the hands. Who knows? It's just whatever was in the way. So let's practice that with a step. Make sure you move your sword first. Think about pulling your elbow and your hand simultaneously, and just follow behind it. Cast the point out, and you end up, when you get up there, you end up in this ox-like position. And if you follow through over the top with your point up, you end up in what Meyer calls Einhorn, which is a modified ox. Make sure you're swinging that blade forward first. Just for example here, this is another one where you're leading with your hands to start out. So if you're going to throw this, do it from well out of measure. Because if you're too close, all they're going to do is, they're just going to cut down into your arm. They're just going to chop down into your hands. All right, let's try that from the other side. This is going to be a little harder with crossed arms. And same thing, we're just going low quadrant to high quadrant. And
It's too long.
what's going on? You want to?
Yeah.
Here, this is a little short.
Are you sure?
You want to trade? Okay.
Thanks, Princess.
Good. All right, a few more. Rinse mine. All right. You good there? Okay. There's one more Unterhau. This is done from a guard I haven't taught yet, but we're gonna have to deal with it tonight anyway. And that is Unterhau with a false edge coming up from the guard of Alber, the Fool. What you're gonna do here is, what I want you to think about when you throw this guy, so we're bisecting the target, right? We're going either straight up, either I'm gonna be targeting an extremity that's extended, or I'm gonna be bringing this up to deflect, try to make contact with this blade and then thrust, or I'm bringing this up, displace and thrust, or I'm attacking an extremity, or maybe if I get lucky, I'm slicing him through the belly on the way up. But the way this works is, what I want you to do, so you're gonna be, just for the sake of this exercise, we're gonna do it with the right foot forward. So your dominant hand, or your right, we'll just assume everybody's right hand, you're gonna be pulling backward. On your backhand, you're gonna be pushing forward. So you get this weird push-pull motion going. Yeah, and that should help when you actually apply more, as you apply more pressure, it's gonna cause that point to want to shoot up. One thing David always said about this being the Barco Lounger of martial arts, he wasn't kidding about that. So for example, I could sit here, and the coach was gonna give me kind of attack, I could use this as a displacement and follow up on attack, or I could use it as a stop thrust, which I'm not going to do because we're in a mess on. Anyway, it's a little harder to do from the other side of the body because your dominant hand is back, and it kind of shortens your stroke because you're not as far out as you could be. Your other foot's forward, so it's going to shorten the range on that, but it's the same mechanics. Just change of foot. Well, you can sit here and just make this thing skip. Alrighty, that's all our cut mechanics. Okay, so to follow up, I wanted to talk about, since we've covered most of the master strokes, aka hidden strokes, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Meyer's hierarchy of defense. For anybody who's familiar with the German system, at least the German traditions, Joachim Meyer is at the tail end of that system, or that lineage. I think he published his book, I believe it was 1560. So he's kind of got the accumulated knowledge of all the other guys there. He's had a lot more time to work through it. But also there's been a big change in the culture because at that point, this isn't so much being taught to noblemen, it's been picked up by the middle class as well, the burger class in Germany. This is being taught to merchants, sons of merchants and merchantmen and things like that. And it's a little more sportified, but that doesn't mean it's not effective. It actually has quite a few effective things, and Meyer does make a big differentiation between effectual fencing and fighting in earnest. And there's a few things in there that also relate to legal statutes of the time, but I could go on about that for a while. I'm not going to get into that. But what's really useful is talking about his hierarchy of defense. So he's got 3 tiers of defense that go from least optimal to optimal. So let me just go over those real quick for you. So the first tier of that defense is where you're just using you're just using you're just using deliberate blade actions to defend against attacks. So you're not sitting necessarily to guard, but you're using active movement with your blade to defend yourself. You're just kind of waving the blade. Basically, you're just kind of waving the blade back and forth to defend yourself. There's not a lot of structure behind it.
Mashing B button.
Yeah, basically, you're basically mashing the parry button over and over again. The second part of his hierarchy of defense is, basically the next best one is what we would call in modern fencing a Dewey Tempe action. So a parry riposte. So what I'm going to do is he's going to make an attack at me. I'm going to parry, and then I'm going to follow through with my attack here. His top tier is in the optimal point of defense is a single time counter, and that's basically where he makes an action at me, and I'm going to basically use my weapon and the length to defend and attack simultaneously. So I'm going to lock out his action and strike against him at the same time. That's the optimal way to deal with this, because this is ideally a single time weapon, but it does work as a 2-time weapon. But that is not always the best. That is not always best for the scenario, depending on what you're up against. Any questions on that?
I like the whip.
Yeah, it works. Running away and waving your blade around is a surefire way not to get hit, unless they can run faster than you. All right. I think that's all I wanted to talk about defense-wise. I think we can get on for. Oh, I wanted to talk about actions with actually one other thing. So it's funny. You do this for 20 years, and you know how things work, and you try to explain them to people who've never done it before, but they don't have the context for it, and so you keep trying to find the words for it, and then you're on TikTok and you find somebody who does that for you. So, yeah, no, great explanation for this. So, just a little movement, just a little time and space paradox here. The further away from your opponent, okay, so if you imagine fencing somebody, imagine it like a funnel. The closer you are away, the wider that funnel, which means you can get away with bigger, wider movements, because they have to move further in order to strike you. The closer you are, the smaller your movements are, because they are in a closer space to be able to strike you. So for instance, if Koisha and I are out here, we could do our full-on Jedi swings, backflips, all that stuff. If I get up here and I give him a nice big cockback with that blow, he's gonna skewer me like a shish kebab. So when I get close like this, I have to keep my movements a lot crisper and a lot more restrained. I have to keep them smaller to be able to act in the time because of the space that we have between us. Does that make sense?
Steel box.
Yeah, the steel box. Yes, sir.
If anything, I believe this is the logic behind why a buckler works.
Yeah, basically. Angle of deflection, yeah, basically. Works on the same principle. Alrighty. So last week not last week, 2 weeks ago we were playing around with the shield how. Does everybody remember that? You remember the shield how?
Sure.
Vividly.
Vividly, there you go. Cool. He wasn't even here. He remembers it. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go over that play again real quick. How many? I think we have enough mass. Do we have enough mass for
I
everybody?
brought my own.
Got your own?
Hey!
Oh, it came in! Yay!
Hey!
All right.
They gave me.
Before we do